I'm basically going to walk you through how do we determine, what type of study is possible, okay, between observational study and experimental study. Then I'm also going to walk you through how good and bad to sample, okay, and how good and bad way to experiment. Okay, there are some bad ways, okay, to experiment, and there are some bad ways to take sample, and we also have good way to do that. And of course, I'm basically going to walk you through that today. Okay, so we're going to start with determining which type of study is possible. I remember the other time I actually introduced you to two types of studies, right? Where I said the observational study, we merely observe, okay? We don't randomize, we don't assign participants to groups using instruction of chance. So the participant will either intentionally or unintentionally enroll themselves. I think I gave an example of, when the government actually, initiate vaccination policy, vaccine, they want to call vaccine mandate, even though they actually said, okay, you need to be vaccinated, some, citizens decided not to take the vaccines, and some actually took the vaccine. And of course, following that, the government can actually, or any researcher can measure the whether the vaccine has really worked or not, by comparing the groups, that took the vaccine with the group that did not take the vaccine. They can actually compare maybe the chance of getting COVID. Okay, so when they are trying to do that, when they don't really maneuver or manipulate, the participant, of course, that is an observational study. Now, let me tell you this, medical experiments are often performed over a short time period. When there was a COVID outbreak, you can see the speed through which the scientists have to, put their heads together, because it is an emergency situation that needed to be addressed. Okay, and in that kind of situation, experimenting could take a long time, before one could achieve that. I want to say part of the success story they have, they were able to identify, there's something that we call biomarkers. I don't know that you've heard about biomarkers. Because the COVID-19 that we have now, okay, it's actually, there's a kind of relationship between it and disease that has already occurred before. Some people talk about coronavirus, SARS-2, some people talk about MERS and SARS that have previously existed. And of course, the scientists were able to link that with this, and from there, they come out with something. Now, let me tell you this. The vaccine company actually used experimental study. Of course, I told you the other time, where they actually collected, they put 17,511 participants in one group and 70,411 in another group. But you know what? That is too risky. Okay? It's an experiment, because the reason why we have to go for the experimental study is because it has a very strong statistical backing. But it's costly. At times it could be unethical. Okay, when you put that into consideration, we may want to go for observational study. But let me also tell you this. The observational study also has some issues. Confounding variable. Okay, confounding variable is the same thing as a locking variable. Locking. You can call it this, or you call it confounding. Confounding variable. For instance, you want to look at the effect of frequent phone use on the risk of getting cancer. Okay, if you want to look at the effect of frequent phone use on the risk of getting cancer, and you don't want to experiment, you want to use an observational study. And the reason why you don't want to do experiment, maybe because it's unethical or it's costly, and you go for observational study. So in the observational study, this is what you're basically going to do. It means you need to identify some participant who have intentionally or unintentionally, or maybe they already have, okay, there's a group here, cancer group. Some participants already, they have cancer, and some no cancer here. And you now draft questionnaire. You know, one of the methods of collecting data. You ask them question. Okay, about how many times do they use phone. Okay, and you now conclude. Maybe you realize that the number that, maybe on average, the number that use phone here is more than the number that use phone here, and you now conclude that's a using frequent phone use could actually increase the risk of getting cancer. You don't know whether there could be some outside variable that may be, it may not even be this. What about a locking variable like lifestyle? The lifestyle of these persons here. Maybe some of them also maybe they spend a lot of time on laptop, on computer, right? What about their genetics? Okay, what about their genetics? Okay, they're going to have different genetics. What about, do you put into consideration the X difference? You don't know. These are the potential locking variables or confounding variables that will influence the association between the frequent use of phone and the risk of getting cancer. But let me tell you this. If we have used experimental way, you know what is going to happen? Because the way the participant will be assigned to groups, we're basically going to use instruction of chance. And you know what? By the time you are randomizing, okay, you're basically going to see that distribution, the two groups will have a similar distribution in terms of health, in terms of disease, in terms of the lifestyle that would have average out when you randomize. Okay, so we have advantage of, when we talk about observational study, we have advantages. When we talk about experimental studies, we have advantages, and the two of them also have the merit. And I think to be able to choose one to use at the end of the day depend on the kind of situation that we find ourselves. In research, we don't only consider efficiency, we also consider cost. I'm going to give you more examples.